Hi there everyone, Tom aka Shin Godzilla 1987 here, back with another special Decode video. I've actually known about the Nadia anime since I first heard about Evangelion as a teen, which has the same creator, Hideki. It wasn't until a few years ago that the awesome music content creator, Zane Goen, created a wonderful cover of one of the themes of the anime that made it come back into my mind. For a mini review, I really enjoyed it. It had beautiful art, animation, lovable characters, and a heartfelt story. Additionally, I think I watched this anime in its entirety at the best time in my life, since about 10 months ago I was told about this incredibly mind-boggling information by a YouTube buddy that has changed my biblical studies and research in a profoundly amazing way. This anime seems to be saturated with this different type of perspective, and as many say, God's timing is perfect after all. In the beginning of the series, which takes place at the 1889 World's Fair in Paris, is a huge reference to the study of lost history, technology, and alternate chronology by analyzing the architecture from the countless old world photos and writings. These world fairs were designed to showcase various achievements in science of the nations and is also showcased in the anime, as John and the other French inventors demonstrate their inventions like flying machines. Of course, the Eiffel Tower is also showcased in the anime and historically was the main attraction at the fair, which was later used for radio transmission. The first signals were sent as early as 1898. My personal favorite of these world fairs is the 1893 World Fair of Chicago, which brings us to the topic of lost history, which shows us that this section of Chicago originally used to look something similar to ancient Greece or the Roman Empire. This architecture has been dismissed by skeptics as being temporary, but to me and many other countless researchers, it looks far more too intricate and detailed to be something that's meant to be built then torn down. In fact, some of these buildings are still standing, repurposed today. This same type of architecture can be found all over America and even all around the world, including countless Victorian-styled buildings, cathedrals, and castles. Many of these amazing buildings are showcased throughout the anime as well. Regarding the topic of alternate chronology, Russian mathematician and artist Anatoly Fomenko concluded that 1,000 years were added to our history and wrote prolifically about it. Much of his research focuses on Russia, and the mysterious Tartarian Empire can also correspond with his research, since it was an enormous Russian-centric empire that some other researchers claim was also Christian too. Another researcher, historian Gunnar Heinsohn, concluded that at least 700 years were added to our timeline. Both Anatoly and Gunnar also claim that many historical events and figures are stretched out, separated into different people and events to lengthen the timeline as well. So where am I heading with this long-winded intro, you ask? Well, biblically, Jesus throughout the gospel stated that his generation would personally witness his second coming, as well as one of his main enemies, the wicked high priest Caiaphas. Rome sacked Jerusalem during the Roman-Jewish War, and Jesus and his saints returned in 70 to 77 AD. The Jewish historian Flavius Josephus also wrote of this, describing a phenomenon of chariots and armed soldiers hurling through the clouds. Jesus Christ set up his kingdom golden age, reign with his saints, while Satan would be bound for 1,000 years. In Revelation 20, starting at verse 3, it states that Satan would be loosed for a little season, and in verse 8 that he would go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth. I personally and many others think that we are in this part of history now, near the end of Revelation, and this little season of Satan probably started out at the end of the 1700s, and his wicked followers that serve him took near total control in the 1800s, which this anime takes place in. Now that the intro is finally done, I'll walk you throughout each interesting episode that touches upon the biblical little season references plus more. In episode 16, while the crew is exploring ancient ruins in the ocean, we see a skeleton of a giant titan. These are definitely a reference to Genesis 6, 6, in which the fallen angels mated with human women and produced monstrous giants known as the Nephilim. The first generation of these beasts were the largest according to the extra-biblical text of Enoch and the Book of Giants, and many of them would have drowned during God's great flood of Noah's time. Makes me wonder if their enormous skeletal remains are still in the deepest parts of the oceans, just like how it is depicted in the anime. In episode 18, while the characters are looking at a map of the South Pole, we see the Star of Rampham, which refers to a pagan deity that is most likely one of the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim giants and is mentioned in Amos 5:26 and Acts 7:43. We also see ancient cosmology symbolism with that small dome which represents the firmament that separates the heavenly realm from the earthly realm and is featured in most cosmologies. Another reference to ancient cosmology is found in episode 19, where the world tree is found underground in the Arctic. This enormous tree was known as the Axis Mundi, in Latin which means world axis, and was found in the middle of the earth, which is the point where heaven and earth connect. In episode 20, when Gargoyle and his evil New Atlantis cult are addressing how they have gained control of much of the world via trade, currency, etc., they are all standing on a flat plane, which is another reference to ancient cosmology and how the wicked want to rule in place of the Heavenly Father, which is mentioned in Psalms 2, which states that the wicked take counsel against the Lord and his anointed, and goes hand in hand with Isaiah 14:12-14, where Lucifer desires to be like the Most High and is the rebellious leader who guides such wicked elite men. The black and white Masonic tiles are also shown, which is very prevalent in the occult and represents duality, good and evil, light, dark, opposites, etc. The black can also represent the hidden world and the white represents the revealed. One more ancient cosmology reference is shown in episode 24 when Jean is dreaming of Nadia and sees her and the other characters on a cutesy version of the Indian cosmology, which has enormous animals as the foundations of the earth. In episode 18, the crew battles a giant animal nautilus in the ocean. Animals were far larger in the time before the Great Flood and maybe a bit after, due to the oxygen levels being far more pure, causing living things to grow far bigger. Additionally, the Bible mentions sea monsters other than the infamous Leviathan in Lamentations 4:3. These may be just describing nursing whales, but an interesting description nonetheless. In episode 19, Captain Nemo and the others see frozen dinosaurs and dragon-like angels in the ice while they are exploring the underground area in the Arctic. This reminds me of the biblical gap theory, which proposes a large time gap between Genesis 1:1 and 1:2, suggesting an initial creation where Satan the dragon ruled with his serpent class of angels, which some say could have been during the age of the dinosaurs, since it was the reign of the reptiles, with the celestial reptilian class of angels looking over this period of time. Satan would have ruled this period of time in righteousness until his rebellion, which would have ended in a cataclysm, which is why in Genesis 1 the earth is without form and void. I personally don't subscribe to this theory, since I think certain dinosaurs and other large reptiles lived during man's creation, and most are extinct now. But I can see why some believe that, and for all I know the gap theory could be true. Also in episode 19, Captain Nemo mentions the Pangea theory, in which all the continents were connected together at one point in the ancient past. Some little seasoned researchers have theorized that most, if not all, the world was connected and was as one, since Rome would have been the fourth final government beast, with the psychotic Emperor Nero as the Antichrist, and the Roman Illibus, which was used to document compliance to imperial commands such as offering sacrifices to Roman gods, could have been the mark of the beast. The seven seals, trumpets, and bowls of judgment in Revelation end with an enormous earthquake and a great hailstorm, which is theorized that was so catastrophic that it split the continents into what we are familiar with today. I'm not sure about the recent Pangea theory, but what I and many researchers do know is that when Rome fell, it fell hard due to God's mighty judgment, as Roman buildings, structures were being unearthed and found all over the world, even today. There is even a buried underwater Greco-Roman temple in the Nadia prequel film, which could be hinting at the past catastrophe. Evidence for God's judgment is found in the year 536, which is known known as the worst year in history, since the sun was blocked out for 18 months, which many Little Season researchers, including myself, think was part of the Great Tribulation plagues and judgments. In episode 22, we learn of Tartessos, which was the last city to be ruled by an Atlantean in the 19th century. Interestingly enough, Tartessos is actually the name of a real-life, supposedly ancient civilization that was located in the southern part of the Iberian Peninsula. This gets back to the study of alternate chronology, which many researchers theorize that there were not as advanced civilizations living alongside highly advanced ones, or ones in the middle, and civilizations which we thought were separated by thousands of years of history living together at the same time. An example of this is Gunnar Heinsohn's placement of King Arthur being around the time before Jesus Christ walked the earth. In the Nadia anime, Tartessos still looking rather ancient, even with Egyptian-like sarcophaguses. Despite this, is still shown to be extremely advanced. The Tower of Babel in Tartessos is an obvious reference to the one in the Bible and in the extra-biblical text of Jasher. In Genesis 10:8-10 to 11:1-9, it states that the whole earth was of one language and of one speech, and the people led by the rebellious king Nimrod were building the tower to defy God and reach heaven. Many researchers think much of so-called modern technology like AI is going to become a new type of Tower of Babel due to mankind being able to communicate and stay connected among other many things through these technologies, which have a double-edged sword. In the anime, the tower was made by the Atlanteans as a communications device, and its energies could be used as a long-range weapon, which mirrors the technological Tower of Babel that is growing before our eyes today, and despite being in the Little Season, could trigger what I like to call an End Times 2.0 scenario. Also in episode 22, in the Emperor's Room, we see a Kabbalah Hamsa symbol, and is said to represent protection and good fortune. However, it is said that Kabbalah originally came from the fallen angels, and is the oldest form of witchcraft and sorcery, which is highly forbidden by the God of the Bible. We also see a painting by Francisco Goya of the Nephilim Roman god Saturn devouring his kin. This reminds me of the Book of Giants, which states that the Nephilim giants turned to cannibalism when mankind couldn't sustain them. In episode 31, we learn that the Atlanteans originally came from outer space, and despite looking like us, aren't part of mankind, including Nadia. This is yet another reference to Genesis 6, since what we think of as outer space is really the heavenly realm, and the original 200 fallen angel fathers of the Nephilim, called the Watchers, came from the heavenly realm and descended to Mount Hermon to plan their scheme of corrupting mankind, according to the Book of Enoch. We also learned that the Atlanteans used their advanced technology in holy wars on Earth, which also remind me of how the fallen angels taught mankind the art of war. These holy wars that the Atlanteans had also mirror a time that is in the Hindu scriptures, which describe the gods having wars using deadly otherworldly technology using flying machines called Vimanas, which look similar to traditional UFOs. An interesting observation with Hindu gods is that most of them are depicted having blue skin, which connects to the blue blood, red blood ideology. The blue bloods represent nobility and aristocracy, and the red bloods represent the regular working class man. This also represents the heavenly, angelic blood and the earthly, since it is thought that the fallen angels intermingled with certain royal bloodlines of their day to have the right to rule. This also ties into the controversial seed of the serpent doctrine, which teaches that Cain was not really Adam's son and was really the son of Satan. One of the biblical proofs for this is that in Genesis 5, where Adam's family tree is presented, Cain is not listed. Cain also traveled to the land of Nod in Genesis 4:16 and spread his fallen angelic bloodline there and the rest of the world. Some even say Nod might have been India, which also connects back to the blue-red blood ideology and all of the strange Nephilim gods in the Hindu pantheon, such as the shape-shifting serpentine Nagas. Where the Atlanteans first land is another amazing reference that ties into the Little Season doctrine. This strange black circle is apparently a real-life anomaly, and many researchers, including myself, believe that is the Rupus Nigrae, which is an area located in the center of our world. It apparently has something to do with what looks like the North Pole and is depicted on many old maps of the Arctic Circle. This is also probably where Jesus Christ is ruling with the saints on earth from the heavenly city, New Jerusalem. This incredible mountainous heavenly city is most likely where heaven meets earth, or the axis mundi that I mentioned earlier. Many think that this area also creates the northern lights, or aurora borealis, and is where the Garden of Eden really is, which I personally believe is the case. A great passage about it is found in Psalm 48. Another interesting connection with all this is Admiral Byrd's exploration of the Arctic Ocean and a segment of Antarctica. In his supposed secret diary, he stated that he ventured into the inner parts of the Earth, which also had a warm climate. Back in episode 19 of Nadia, it is revealed that the Arctic has a warm area underground as well. Strangely enough, despite most of our nations of the world not getting along, most agreed and signed the Antarctic Treaty in 1959 that designates Antarctica to be used solely for peaceful purposes and forbids the public from going to the mysterious and incredible icy continent. Also in episode 31, we learn that Nadia's blue water gem is actually the legendary Philosopher's Stone artifact in alchemy that was capable of transforming basic metals into precious ones, like gold, and was even able to grant immortality. Something interesting I noticed about the stone is that it looks similar to a sapphire, which was one of the stones worn on the breastplate of the high priest of Israel. Each stone represented a tribe of Israel, and the sapphire one represented Zebulun, who was the 10th son of Jacob, and who was destined to be the seafaring tribe with a haven of ships as stated in Genesis 49:13. This also goes so well with the Nadia anime, since much of the story takes place at sea, and of course the connection with Atlantis and the oceans in many so-called mythologies. Additionally, the Philosopher's Stone is said to be mentioned and connected to the Temple of Solomon in Psalm 118:22 via an esoteric interpretation. However, the true meaning behind it is Jesus Christ and how he was rejected by the religious leaders, and despite this became the foundation stone, which represents him and the Heavenly Father's plan for salvation that was built. This gives new meaning to the scene towards the end of the series when Shin is returned to life by the stone's power. After all, Jesus said that he is the resurrection and the life. In episode 35, it is revealed that the ancient high-tech ship Blue Noah was another Noah's Ark. This reminds me of the Epic of Gilgamesh's similarities to Noah's flood account. In Gilgamesh's version, Utnapishtim, who serves many gods, which I believe are the fallen angels, get angry at mankind for being noisy and disruptive. So Utnapishtim builds an ark to save himself, his family, his possessions, and many animals. The main reasons why I think this is Utnapishtim and his ark being depicted here is all the animals being saved here are these big kaiju dinosaurs, which are more in line with the reptilian class of serpent angels that many of these ancient mystery religion cults worshipped. Also, the name of this ark is called the Blue Noah, which could refer to the blue blood symbolism that I mentioned earlier. Additionally, the character depicted here has a double cross staff, or what's similar to a Leviathan cross, which is an occult symbol associated with Satanism. Also in episode 35 and earlier in the series, we see Stairway to Heaven, or Masonic staircase symbolism, which in the Masonic religion represents the journey of self-improvement, spiritual growth, and a passage from this world to the heavens. However, Jesus said in John 10:1-16 that the only way to enter into heaven is by him alone. In episode 36, Gargoyle was shown to be able to destroy most of a mountain with the incredible ancient technology that his secret society had acquired. This reminded me of the ancient Roman mining technique called ruina mountum, Latin for wrecking of mountains. This allowed the Romans to destroy large portions of mountains with apparently just water pressure for mining. Additionally, Rome was also known for their extremely durable concrete, which is apparently far superior to modern concrete. This would explain why these old world buildings still stand to this day with little to no wear. Back in episode 21, Gargoyle also had a frequency weapon that apparently was the same one that destroyed the walls of the city of Jericho, which is in Joshua 6:1-5. Some researchers speculate that the horn used in this part of the Bible was a frequency weapon, but I tend to lean on the more supernatural side of things, and it was God that brought down the walls because of Joshua and the Israelites' obedience to him. In the Nadia prequel-sequel film, Geiger's tower that was used to control his robot army has the same design seen in many old world building photos and books. Many researchers call these structures antiquotech, and it is said that these devices were used to harness energy from the ether, which is energy found in the upper part of the stratosphere, which could be used to power cities and was apparently wireless free clean energy. The genius inventor Nikola Tesla knew of these possibilities, and many researchers think he reverse engineered this technology, which was sadly suppressed due to shady interests involving monetary gain and more control over society. The humanoid robots mentioned earlier can be a reference to the various robotic constructs and automatons like the Greek talos. Small statues similar to the Greek talos are found in other parts of the world as well. This also ties into episode 39 when it is revealed that Nadia's brother's body was destroyed and is now replaced with a robotic transhumanist body, which reminds me of Daniel 2:43, where many interpret the iron to represent technology and the clay to represent man, while the they represents fallen entities. I personally think some type of transhumanist scenario will still happen in the little season and could have something to do with AI, as I mentioned earlier. In episode 37, it is mentioned that the Nautilus and the Red Noah were originally spaceships, and both are powered by technology that is far more advanced than anything in the 19th century. This once again brings up the study of advanced ancient technology, which many researchers and myself believe were given the knowledge to create such tech by angelic entities, the negative ones by the fallen, and the positive ones, like the countless amazing old world buildings, might have been built with the aid of the good heavenly angels and the resurrected saints during Jesus' 1,000-year reign. Captain Nemo's Nautilus sub also reminds me of a bizarre yet interesting petrified structure in India that some researchers think may be an antediluvian or old world submarine. When looking into the topic of lost history, the Bible verse from Ecclesiastes 1:9 always comes to mind, which states, "The thing that hath been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is nothing new under the sun," proving that history is pretty much cyclical, at least for now. In episode 37, the character Electra says,
"There are many tunnels just like this one. They stretch underneath the entire lengths of 5 continents and 7 oceans."
This topic of underground tunnels and cities is another amazing complex study, since probably before the Great Flood, these subterranean spaces were being created by many different civilizations. Some of the biggest underground sections in the United States are found in Los Angeles, San Diego, Sacramento, and Portland. One of my favorite examples of underground tunnels is the Hopi Indian legends of underground ant people who saved them twice from horrible events on Earth. Once when the Earth flooded, and the other when the Earth was burned. Some people say this was during God's great flood, and the other from the burning of Earth with fire during Jesus' judgments, as mentioned in 2 Peter 3:10 through 12. This ties into the topic of meldology, which is the study of rocks which look like ancient buildings that were melted. An example of this can be found way back in episode 16, where the ruins of Atlantis are found melted. Also in episode 37, it is revealed that the Atlanteans created mankind, and a giant atom was their first attempt. This ties into the study that not only animals were larger in the ancient past, but also mankind, due to the oxygen levels being far more pure, and creation in general. The Atlanteans creating mankind can be a reference to certain sects of Gnosticism, teaching that the creators of our flesh bodies are really a prison created by Satan and the fallen angels in the Old Testament, which are called archons. Basically, all the physical is bad, while in traditional Christianity, they go hand in hand and are linked to an extent, which I personally believe. Lastly, in episode 37 to 38, Gargoyle, while trying to play God, uses the giant great ship Red Noah to declare war on mankind, using a giant holographic hologram of Nadia's brother Neo to convey the message. This reminds me of blue beam technology that can be used to create convincing images, which many researchers think might play a part as a great deception during the final stages of the little season. One can also look at the climax of the anime as an inversion of the truth, since when Jesus Christ and the saints reveal themselves from the heavenly realm or the north on the floating city New Jerusalem, it will literally look like an invading mothership of sorts wanting to destroy mankind. Like the Red Noah, New Jerusalem is unfathomably huge, the dimensions being 14,000 times 12,000 furlongs, as stated in Revelation 21:16, and dwarfs most things in fiction. Depictions of the heavenly city are even on old world coins, these interestingly enough being from France, where the climax of the anime takes place. Coins from other nations have been found, all depicting Jesus' incredible heavenly city, which I and others think were created during the 1,000-year reign to honor him. Myself and many other Christian researchers think Satan will use some type of scenario like this as a way to deceive much of the world into fighting against Jesus Christ, the Heavenly Father, and the saints at the end of the little season, as stated in Revelation 20:8-9. This will end with fire raining down from heaven, which is similar to what the Red Noah does in the anime, and will devour all that try to battle against God, ending with the final judgment and the creation of the new heaven and earth, which is in Revelation 20:12-15 and 21-4, ushering in eternity. In an ironic twist of fate in episode 39, Gargoyle tries to acquire the blue water, but dissolves into salt since he was never truly part of the Atlantean bloodline and was just a normal man all along. This of course reminds me of Lot's wife turning into a pillar of salt in Genesis 19:26. However, in Lot's wife's case, this happened because she looked back to Sodom and Gomorrah, not wanting to truly leave her sinful past. And finally, throughout the anime, the Christian influence is still strong, despite all the hardships the characters go through. This mirrors reality as the Christian faith still goes on through the world, as the Christian remnant, despite living in the deceptive little season, proclaim the truth that Jesus Christ is King on a literal throne, reigns supreme on the earth and in our hearts as well. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you would like to know more about the little season theory and lost history in general, be sure to check out the channel's My Lunch Break, which does a great job focusing on individual buildings and the technical parts of the inconsistencies of mainstream history. And for more Christian focused channels, check out my YouTube buddy Dan at the Jesus Clan with Dan, Vitali at Alpha Talks, Paul at Understanding Conspiracy, Joe at JT Follows JC, Jason Jack, and Madeline at Leaving Babylon. And always remember to pray for wisdom and guidance when researching such complex topics. I appreciate each and every one of you, and may the Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ bless you, your families, and everything that you do. This is Shin Godzilla 1987 signing out. Take care.